Today we will discuss one of the other very important concept, that is flow control statements. Flow control statements. So in order to write at least simple Python programs, the basic concepts which you need to understand is how to write identifiers. Already we discussed what are the rules for identifiers and what are the data types. Already we discussed what are the different data types. And this is another important concept in order to write Python programs. How to write, what are flow control statements, what are the syntaxes, how to write flow control statements. We'll see with some simple examples. So there are three kinds of flow control statements: conditional statements and iterative statements, iterative statements and transfer statements, transfer statements. So these are three important categories of flow control statements. In conditional statements, we are going to discuss if else, if else. So these three categories we are going to discuss. So what is each category, when we need to use what kind of control statement we are going to discuss. And iterative statements we are going to discuss for loop and while loop. So these two categories. And in the transfer statements we are going to discuss break, continue and pass. Break, continue, pass. So we'll try to cover as much as possible with examples in today's session. So these are very important syntaxes you need to learn in order to write Python programs. First, we'll start with conditional statements. Conditional statements. So for example, just to take a simple scenario, I wanted to check something. So for example, I have some 100 students data. I wanted to check whether the student is eligible for voting or not. Based on that, for example, if some election is happening, if the student is eligible for voting, then I wanted to provide holiday for that students and so on, something like that. So I wanted to check condition whether student is eligible for voting or not. So what is the minimum condition I need to check? Age, whether age is greater than 18 or not. Means here, if age is greater than 18, he is eligible for voting. Else, I need to write some other logic. Means uh, here I wanted to skip some statements. If I wanted to skip some statements, or if I wanted to execute some statements, if I wanted to execute some statements based on some conditions, based on some condition, then we are going for conditional statements. Conditional statements when we require is when if you wanted to execute some statements based on some condition, and if you wanted to execute some statements based on some other condition, then we are going for these conditional statements. So for example, my logic is something: if age is greater than 18, then I need to write some logic. Whoever eligible, I wanted to provide some holiday or something, whatever it may be, based on some condition. I wanted to write some logic here. So if the condition satisfies, I wanted to execute something. And if the condition is not satisfied, I wanted to execute some other set of statements. So in this case, we require conditional statements. So in conditional statements, first category is if statement. If statement. So in other programming languages, if you have some idea about C or C++ or Python, Java, .NET, so how we are going to write if statement is if some condition, in parenthesis you are going to write some condition, colon, and open brace, body of if statement, means whatever logic if you wanted to write here, you need to write that logic, and closed brace. So this is the way you are going to write in other programming language. So this is in either C programming or C++ or Java or .NET and so on. But here, so there is no braces are required in Python programming. In Python programming, there is no braces are required. There are no braces required. So then how the Python program will understand multiple statements in a block. So for example, if age is greater than 18, in other programming languages, what we are writing is, in order to make a block of code, we are using braces. Whatever the logic, if you write some 10 statements or 20 statements, all those will be executed if the condition is satisfied. So all these 10 statements or 20 statements, whatever the logic you need to implement here, the condition is satisfied, this entire logic will be executed. But in Python, what I'm telling is there is no concept called as braces. Then how Python will identify a group of statements? That syntax is important. In Python, how Python will identify a group of statements. So for example, in Python, the syntax is if condition, up to that it is same, but there is no braces concept. So if condition, whatever the condition, parenthesis also not required, and colon as usual, here also colon is followed. But if you wanted to write some statements within this block, you need to give indentation. What is indentation? I will explain. So whatever the block of statements you are starting, all those statements will start with the same indentation. So what is indentation? We'll see with an example. Here the concept is indentation. Indentation. So what is indentation means whatever the block of statements, you wanted to indicate within the block, all those statements should start with the same column space. So by default, this Jupyter notebook or ideally Python will give tab space. By default, this Jupyter notebook or whatever the editor we are going to use, it will give tab space in order to indicate these are the group of statements. So instead of starting at first column, it will start after 5 column space. So tab is nothing but 5 spaces it will give, right? By default, it will start in order to indicate these are the group of statements. It will start with 5 column space, all the statements. If it is outside of this space, for example, again one more statement which is starting from the first column means it is outside of that block of statements. So see here how to indicate a group of statements is if I am writing some condition and if condition and you are writing a block of statements, how many statements you are going to write within the block? It should start with the same column space. It should start with same column space. The sentences which are outside of that column space are outside of that block. So first conditional statement is if statement. First we'll see what is the use of if statement. If statement syntax is if condition followed by colon and whatever the statements you want, you need to give the indentation. indentation concept. So this is the syntax of if statement. What is the use of if statement is, if this condition is true, it will execute this set of statements. If condition is true, it will execute this set of statements. If condition is true, this will execute this set of statements. And if the condition is false, it will come out of that, means it will not execute any statements within that block of statements. So first conditional statement is if condition is true, then only it will execute those block of statements. So go to Jupyter Notebook. So we are discussing conditional statements. As I told, if you wanted to add any heading, you can add in the Jupyter Notebook. So there is heading in the drop down, just select that. You can able to add heading conditional statements. So these are conditional statements example. What I'm telling is if condition, and so whatever the condition you wanted to check the condition. And here a set of block of statements are started with same column space. So this concept is called as indentation. Indentation. If any statement outside of that indentation is considered as out of that block. So it is not within the if statement. It is outside that if statement. So let us see some simple example. So write a Python program. Write a Python program. Read age of the student. Age of the student and check whether student is eligible for voting or not. So this is simple example. So what I'm asking is read the age of the student. So how to read from the keyboard is, you know, right? Input function, input, enter, age of student. And I told if you are reading by using input statement, it will always read in string, right? In order to convert that into the integer, because age is an integer, right? If you wanted to convert that into the integer, you need to apply int function outside of that input function. If you need string, there is no need to apply any conversion. But if you need integer or float, you need to apply outside that conversion. So now I'm able to read age of student. Once if you read, what is my requirement? If age is greater than or equal to 18. So whatever the logic you wanted to write, so print age is greater than 18, and so print eligible for voting. Means here I'm writing some print statements, but based on the user requirement. So for example, he is greater than 18. So then I wanted to give some bonus points or something. I means I wanted to hike. For example, here I'm reading is, for example, you are applying for some interviews based on the experience. If it is greater than 2, then I wanted to decide some salary. If it is greater than 5, I wanted to decide some salary. So that kind of logic you can write within this block. Eligible for voting. And so whatever the logic you wanted to write, how many number of statements you wanted to write, you can write, you can declare those many statements here. So declare holiday during voting something. I am writing some statements here. And what I'm telling is, if any statement which is not within the indentation is outside of that block, outside conditional statement, outside conditional statement. So see here, So see here, if you see this conditional statement, if the condition is satisfied, then only it will execute this block of statements. If the condition is not satisfied, so I'm not writing any logic. So that we'll see if the condition is not satisfied. If we wanted to execute other set of questions, other set of logic, how to execute that we will see in the next example. So here this if statement, what it will means, if the condition is true, it will execute a set of statements. Simple logic of if is, if the condition is true, it will execute this, otherwise it won't do anything. And what I'm telling is here, there is one concept called as indentation. So throughout Python programming, you need to remember indentation concept. Indentation means if you wanted to declare a group of statements, a block of statements, every statement should start with same column space. So by default, Jupyter Notebook or PyCharm or ideally will give a tab space, but at least one minimum space is required in order to indicate a group of statements. By default, the Python syntax followed in Jupyter Notebook or PyCharm is these are giving five spaces, that is tab space it is giving to indicate a group of statements. Now what I am telling is the statement which is outside this block is not considered within this if statement. Means if the statement is true or false irrespective of this, it is executing this print statement. Let us see, execute this. Enter student is, let us say 25. So what it has to print, age is greater than 18, eligible for voting. So declare holiday during voting or something, whatever you wanted to print. And then what I'm telling is irrespective of this condition, it will execute this print statement. You can see age is greater than 18 and so on, whatever you are writing your logic. And outside conditional statement, it is executing irrespective of this condition. And execute it again. Let us enter the age is 13. You can see outside conditional statement means it is not satisfying this condition, so it is coming out of this if statement, and whatever the logic outside of that if statement, it is executing the remaining statements. So just remember this indentation will plays a major role because in Python we don't have the concept called as braces like other programming languages. In other programming languages we are having the concept like braces. Within the braces whatever you are going to write, it will take as a block. But here only indentation will recognize a group of statements. So this is simple if statement. So the simple if statement is if condition is true, it will execute the statements. If condition is true, then it will execute the statements. Simple if condition is true, then only it will execute statements. It will execute statements. So let us say I wanted to perform the logic where if condition is false, I need to execute some other set of statements. If condition is false, then I wanted to execute some other set of statements. So for example, if age is less than 18, so then I wanted to utilize them for some other purpose, like instead of voting, uh, so just declaring the holiday, but he is not eligible for voting. So something because during voting I wanted to declare, but he's not, some other logic I wanted to perform. But here, if I use simple if, that logic is not possible, then I need to use if else. If else concept. If else, what it will do means, if condition is true, it will perform true statements. If else, what it will perform is, if condition is true, true block statements, true block statements. Else, if you wanted to perform some false box, means if the condition is false, I wanted to perform some other set of statements, you can use else part. So if condition is true, it will execute true block. If condition is false, it will execute false block. Again, same concept, indentation. If you wanted to write a multiple group of statements in the else block, you need to follow the indentation concept. You need to follow the indentation concept. So see here, and So let us write some simple Python program. So now onwards, we will execute some set of simple Python programs wherever, for each concept, wherever it is required. So for example, simple Python program for if-else statement. So write a Python program to check whether user is authorized or not. User is authorized or not. So for example, I am entering my password equal to ABCD and username equal to XYZ. So this is, let's assume this is my username and password. If the condition is true, then I have to give access to my web application. So give access to your web application. Otherwise, if the condition is false, then I need to print some message, you are invalid user. You are invalid user. So this is my program. I wanted to read username and password. If it is matches with this username and password, I wanted to give access to my web application. If it is an invalid user, then I wanted to display your invalid user. So how to write this simple Python program by using if else. So read username equal to input, enter username, enter username. So I need a string, right? Some y, x, y, z or something. If you need a string, then no need to apply any conversion here because it is always reading in a string. And password equal to input, enter password, enter password. So if username equal to, so what I need to check, if username equal to ABCD and password equal to whatever, if username equal to XYZ and password equal to ABCD, something like this. If condition is satisfied, so later when you have some database, here just I'm hard coding, but in real time you need to read these values from the database and then you can retrieve and check whether he is a valid user or not. That when we are discussing databases, maybe I will show you how to read the values from the database. Just remember, just I'm hard coding these values here. So if username equal to this, so just I'm printing you are a valid user. So you can write set of statements, how many statements you want, whatever the logic you want, you can implement that logic here. Welcome to Facebook, something I'm writing. And if the valid, if he is not a valid user, then I'm going to write in the else block. So print you are not authorized user. You are not authorized user. Please enter valid credentials, something I'm writing. Please enter valid credentials. So whatever examples we are explaining right here, I may explaining one or two examples, but you can search a lot of examples and Google it, and you can get a lot of examples and conditional statements. You can practice all those programs in order to get a better understanding of these control statements. See here, if the condition is true, it will execute true block. If the condition is false, it will execute false block. And again, what I'm telling is if you are writing outside of that block, irrespective of the condition is true or false, it will execute this logic outside of conditional statements. Conditional statements. Outside of conditional statements. So see here, execute this program. here I need to check if you are writing a condition means double equal to. So I'm not assigning the value, right? I need to check the value. You need to write double equal to. So enter username. Let us say I'm entering some wrong username and some wrong password. So you can see you are not authorized user. Please enter valid credentials outside of. So this outside of conditional statements, irrespective of the condition is true or false, it will execute. Whatever the logic you are going to write after these conditional statements, it will execute. And here, if this condition is not satisfied, so it is coming to else part. It is printing the else part. And let us try to enter the same username XYZ and password is ABCD. So see here, you are a valid user. Welcome to Facebook. Outside of conditional statements, as I told, whether the condition is true or false, it will execute irrespective of the condition. Because it is not there either in if block or else block. It will execute outside of that. It is outside of that block, right? It will execute irrespective of the condition is true or false. This is if else statement. So we discussed simple if, where if you wanted to check just condition, and if it is true, if you wanted to execute those conditions, conditional statements. That is if statement. If else, if the condition is true, I wanted to execute one block. If the condition is false, I wanted to execute another block. So this is if else. Next, we are having one more concept called as if else. If else. If else. So why I require if else? So for example, take one simple example. If student grade is greater than 7, I wanted to print as distinction. If student grade from 6 to 7, take it as first class. First class. And if the student grade is 5 to 6, means greater than 70%, simply I can say 70%. Greater than 70% distinction. 60 to 70% first class. And 50 to 60% second class. Second class. And 40 to 50% third class. And below 40, it is fail. Here you can see not only two conditions, whether true or false. We are having multiple conditions. If I use if else, what I'm telling is if it is true, it will execute some block. If it is false, it will execute some other block. But here my condition is not only true or false. I am having multiple conditions. If it is true, I have to execute some set of blocks. If it is true, I need to execute another set of block. If it is true, I need to execute another set of block and so on. Here 4-5 conditions, but in real time you get a lot of conditions to check. Then simple if else, it may not be useful. In that case, we need to write if else. So if condition 1, execute block 1, execute block 1, if condition 2, block 2, if condition 3, block 3, and so on. You can write a number of conditions, block 3, and so on. You can write n number of conditions. So there is no restriction. Condition n, block n, and there will be one default block, else block. So default, if all the conditions are false, then what you wanted to execute, you can write default statements in the default else block. So what it will happen is if condition 1 is true, it will execute block 1. If the condition 1 is false, then it will go and check condition 2, condition 3, condition 4, condition n. Means it will execute all the check all the conditions. Wherever it is true, it will execute all those set of statements. If all the conditions are false, then it will go for else block, execute some default statements. So if you have multiple conditions, then you can go for if else conditional statement. So let us take same example. So my requirement is I need to read student percentage. I wanted to perform some logic like this. So my logic is I wanted to write some simple Python program to read student grade or student percentage and perform some logic on this. So I wanted to perform some logic on this student percentages. So let us say percentage equal to read, not read, input statement, input read student percentage, student percentage. So student percentage, it may be float, right? Means percentage, it may be 79.2 or say 80.5, 85.7. Means it may be float. You can try to convert into float. So just by seeing the values itself, you can get to know whether it is integer or float or any other data type, or if you need only string. If you need only string, there is no need to apply conversion. But if you need another data types, then you need to convert that into the by suitable data type. So I'm reading percentage. So if percentage greater than or equal to 70, so print you got a distinction. And so for example, some college, if you are greater than 70, your masters, they are giving some discounts or something. Then if it is greater than 70, they are reducing your fees by 10% in your masters, something like that. Means if you wanted to write some logic, you can write, and you can write a number of statements, whatever the logic you required here. So let us say you are eligible for 10% discount in your master's fees, something like this. And so this is if it is greater than or equal to 70. If so next condition is if percentage greater than or equal to 60 and percentage less than 70. So then print first class. So whenever you will get any doubts, also just message me in chat so that I can able to answer. If you are able to understand, that is fine. If you don't have any questions later, if you get any questions also, you can message me. I can answer all your questions. So if next condition is, so 50 to 60, it is a second class. So if percentage is greater than or equal to 50 and less than 60, it is second class. And the next percentage greater than or equal to 40 and less than 50, it is third class. And if all the conditions are false, then I can put he is a failed candidate. So print failed. So see here, based on my percentage entered, if it is greater than 70, it will execute this set of block of statements. If it is between 60 to 70, it will execute this block of statements. If it is 50 to 60, it will execute this block of statements. If it is 40 to 50, it will execute this block. If it is less than 40, then it will come for else part and it will execute this else block. So read student percentage. Let us say if I enter 50, so what block it has to print? It has to print greater than or equal to 50 and less than 60, that is second class. Let us say 54 or 55. So you can see it is not executed this block. It is not executed this block. It is executed this block where the condition is satisfied. If I enter something 79, it will execute only first block. You got distinction. If I execute below 40, that is, let us say 35, you can see it skipped remaining all the blocks and it came for else part. So this if else means if you have multiple conditions, then if you wanted to execute multiple conditions, then you can go for if else part. So I think these first three statements, it is clear with those examples. So in conditional statements, we are having three: if else, and if else. Very simple. If you don't have any false conditions, just if you wanted to execute only true block, then you can use if. If you have true as well as false, then go with if else. If you have multiple conditional statements, means multiple conditions, if you wanted to check, then you can go for if else. And there is one more concept called as nested if. So that is based on the if we can use this nested if. Nested if. So nested if means if within another if. If within another if. For example, you checked some condition, but again inside of that condition, if you wanted to check another condition, then you can write if within another if. Let us see some simple example. And so let us say I wanted to give some seat in for election for my party, and I am checking age is one criteria, so he should be major, greater than 18, and so some reservation concept is there. I wanted to check gender after checking the age, whether the person is male or female. So I wanted to check condition within another condition, so then I can go for nested if. So let us say age equal to read, that is input, enter. Here I need integer, right? Int of input of enter age, and also I'm checking gender, input, enter gender, and so if is greater than 18, so that is one condition I wanted to check. After checking condition, you are writing something, so print you are eligible for voting, whatever the logic you wanted to write. After writing, again inside I wanted to check some more condition. If gender equal to male, so you are eligible for 20% reservation something, or if gender double equal to female, so something I'm writing, print you have some 35% reservation something. So what I'm doing is within if I'm checking again another if or elif means I'm writing some more condition, then I can use this concept. We can call it as a nested if. Nested if. So if within another if. So let us try to execute. So it is 23 and I'm entered mail. You can see you are eligible for voting. You are eligible for 20% reservation. So if you have another condition after writing some logic, or even after writing if you wanted to check another condition, then you can write nested if. Even you can use this if else also directly, like this concept also you can write. Means here only I can write multiple conditions in if a is equal to greater than 18. I can use and, so gender equal to this. So I can write this syntax also valid, but we are having one more concept called as nested if. To you can use like this, or even you can use this syntax also to work on multiple conditions. So this is about control statements, how the control statements will work with simple examples. And this is one of the very, very important concept. And next we are going to discuss iterative statements also. That is also very important concept in order to write some Python programs. So it is not at all mandatory. That's what I told, right? Declaring a Python variable, it is not mandatory. In the first session we discussed, it is a dynamically typed language. So maybe you know C programming. In C programming, first I need to declare a variable and then I need to assign the value to the variable. But in Python, it is not at all mandatory. If I assign something 10, then it will take it as an integer. If I assign 10.5, it will take it as a float. If I assign string, it will take it as a string. So that's why I told in the first session, Python is dynamically typed language. Dynamically typed language. So no need to declare data type for the variable in Python. By default, based on the value assigned, it will take the data type of the variable. So I hope I answered your question. Next, we'll discuss iterative statements. Iterative statements. So this is also one of the very important concept. So after discussing iterative statements, if you wanted to practice some programs, I will share some programs. Maybe you can practice. So in iterative statements, we are having concept called as for loop and while loop. I will discuss when we need for loop, when we need while loop, and both are used to perform the same logic, but there is a slight difference based on the scenario. You need to use for loop or while loop. So why for loop or while loop is required? Why iterative statements are required? So for example, let us take So let us take, I wanted to print something Kishore Chakrabarti 100 times. In my program, I wanted to print something Kishore 100 times. Usually, what is our logic without knowing this for loop or while loop? How to print Kishore 100 times? I need to write manually. I need to repeat this logic, whatever printing Kishore 100 times, right? Without using this for loop or while loop. So if I don't know while loop or for loop, so if I wanted to print Kishore 100 times, I need to write 100 times that logic. If I wanted to print 1000 times, I need to write 1000 times. Or if I wanted to perform some logic 100 times, I need to write the same logic 100 times. But here, so by using for loop or while loop, so these will eliminate unnecessary repetitions of the same logic. So what we can do is whatever the logic you wanted to repeat for multiple times, create a for loop or while loop, place that logic and repeat that for loop or while loop those many number of times. So for loop or while loop are used to repeat the logic, repeat the logic based on requirement. So same logic will be repeated for multiple times based on user requirement. If you want 100 times, you can repeat 100 times or 1000 times or 1 lakh times based on your requirement. You can repeat that logic those many number of times by using for loop or while loop. So both are used to for repetitions only, but there is a slight difference that we will discuss with an example. So what is the syntax of for loop? So if you have some idea about C programming, there is syntax of for loop is for initialization, initialization and increment or decrement and then condition. So like this. So if I wanted to increment, for example, if I wanted to repeat the loop for 100 times, how to write the loop is first I need to start with 1 and I less than or equal to 100 and I plus plus. So this is the syntax in C programming and followed by colon. And since I need to repeat, write a set of block of statements, right? I need to use braces concept. That means whatever the logic you wanted to write, you can write that logic within those block of statements. As usual, as I told, there is no braces concept in Python. So there is no braces concept in Python. What concept we need to use in Python? So there is no braces concept. Not there. So instead of that, what we need to use? Indentation. Indentation concept we need to use. So if I wanted to repeat a set of block of statements, then I need to use indentation. And what is the syntax of for loop is in Python? So first we'll see some example for loop and then we'll see an example for while loop and then I will explain the difference between for loop and while loop. So for loop syntax for variable in data structure or collection, data structure or simply I can say collection and followed by colon and here you need to follow the indentation how many statements you wanted to write. You can write those many statements with indentation concept. So this indentation is important throughout your Python program. So whenever you are writing any number of programs, you need to follow this indentation. If you wanted to write a block of statements, you need to start with same column space for all those block of statements. So what is this syntax? We'll see with an example. So whenever if I say something data structure or collections in Python, just remember those are nothing but list, tuple, or set, or dictionary, or range. So immediately if I ask something about, tell me about data structures or collections in Python, you need to get in your mind. So list, tuple, set, and dictionary and range. So maybe in other programming languages means even we can implement those kind of data structures like list, stack, queue. So that maybe you can learn, but simple data structures in Python are list, tuple, set, or dictionary. So in order to write this Python syntax for loop, so for variable in a list or tuple or range, so you can use anything and you can write the set of logic here. So let us say first program, write a Python program. So write a Python program. So write a Python program. write a Python program to print numbers from 1 to 100. To print numbers from 1 to 100. So let us say 1 to 100 I need to print. Means what I need to do? I need to range, means I need to generate numbers from by using range. So if I wanted to generate a set of values, a range of values, then I can use collection called as range, which is used to generate a range of values. And so my requirement is write a Python program to print even numbers, even numbers from 1 to 100. So my requirement is I wanted to repeat the numbers from 1 to 100, but out of 1 to 100, I need the output like 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. I need the output something like this. So see here, first I need, it is clear that I need to generate a range of numbers 1 to 100. So how I can write for loop here is for variable in range of 1 to 100. So variable means like you can use the name as a variable, or by default if you see the some websites or materials, usually I and j k something like we are going to use the variable names. So in many of the programming tutorials or somewhere you can see for loop syntax or somewhere. So variable name we can use, but here you can use some meaningful name, or you can also use I or j or k the variable name. So what it will happen is, so for I in range of 1 to 100 means, what is the meaning of this is, for every value in the range that is 1 2 3 4 up to 100, it will repeat this for loop. So first initial iteration I equal to 1, second iteration I equal to 2, I equal to 3, I equal to 100, and to until I equal to 100. So it will repeat automatically. In other programming languages, what I need to do, I need to increment that value, and for every iteration, I need to write my own initialization. I need to increment it. I need to check the condition, but that syntax is eliminated. Just you need to declare a data structure which will determines which will increment all the values, and this for loop is repeated for all these values in the range. And what is my program? I need to check whether this number is even number or not. Number is even means which is divisible by 2. If I double equal I. So here if I wanted to get the remainder, there is one operator called as modulo division, that is percentage symbol. So actually how you can say whether it is even number or not means, if you get remainder is 0, remainder is 0, if you divide by 2, then it is a even number, right? Here if you wanted to get the remainder after division, so then you need to use percentage symbol. So this is called as modulo division operator. So maybe I will discuss those operators in the next session. What are the different operators available in Python? If you wanted to get a remainder value, then you need to use the operator percentage symbol. So if it is divisible by 2, so print that number. So if you want in the same line, use and attribute. Otherwise, if you wanted to print all the values, no single line is required, then no need to use and attribute. So execute this program. You can see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. It is executed. So I didn't mention any increment or decrement. I didn't mention any condition. Just what it will do means whatever the values within this range, it will execute this logic. So it will execute this logic. So if I need odd numbers, so for example, same logic, I need to print all the odd numbers. So then, which is not divisible by 2, right? Means the remainder, it should not be equal to 0. So it may be some other remainder, not equal to 0. So which will check the remainder is not equal to 0, then it will print all the numbers. You can see. So 1, 3, 5, and so on. So like this, you can see, you can use this for loop. For loop syntax is for I in collection, that is list, tuple, set, or dictionary. So similar way, for example, I'm having a list of values of all my student names like Kishore, and all my student names are there like Jahangir, Kishore, Mukesh, and Jahangir and Sudeshna. So all my student names, I wanted to print all these names. So by using for loop. So how I can see for I in list. So maybe if you wanted to give the meaningful name for the list, just you can give name list, student name list. So variable name, you can mention proper variable name. You can use the same variable name here. So list of student names. So print I. So here I'm not giving any increment or decrement operation. Just it will take care of whatever the values within the this. So whatever the values within the list, it will take care of those list values. See here, same thing will be applicable for tuple or set or dictionary. So whatever the values within your list or tuple or set or dictionary, it will repeat that for loop for those many values. And next, we are having for loop. First, we'll see an example for loop, and then we'll discuss what is for loop, when I need to use for loop, and when I need to use while loop. So while loop also I can do the same thing. So here while loop also used for repeating a set of values. While loop also used for repeating the code based on user requirement, But here the syntax is, first I need to initialize where I need to repeat. Initialization is required. And inside while loop, you need to give the condition where you wanted to stop the loop. Inside while loop, if you want inside while loop, you have to mention the condition where you wanted to stop. So see here, while first I need to initialize the variable where you wanted to start. Let's say while I equal to 1, and I less than or equal to 100. So not condition. Inside the while loop, you need to mention increment or decrement. Here you can see while I less than or equal to 100. So print I. So we'll see an example. I equal to I plus 1. So here also you need to write a set of block of statements, right? Which should have the same space. So that is the condition. Here also, if you wanted to represent a set of block statements within the while loop, so same indentation concept. So same program, by using while loop also I can able to do repeating 1 to 100 if you wanted to print 1 to 100 by using for loop or while loop. So for example, for I in a range of 1 to 100, So this is for loop, print I. So printing values from 1 to 100. So same while loop also I can use while I equal to 1, while I less than or equal to 100, print I, and I equal to I plus 1. Means every time I need to write this, first I need to initialize my variable, and I need to write increment or decrement within the while loop, and I need to mention the condition. So both are performing the same operation. See the output of for loop and while loop, which is means which are used to print 1 to 100 only. Here also 1 to 100 I am printing. So the problem here is the use case scenario when I need to use for loop and while loop is, so main thing you need to remember, when I need to use for loop or while loop. When I need to use for loop or while loop. So you need to remember this whenever you are writing Python programs. So whether I need to choose while loop or whether I need to use for loop. So if you know what values you need to initialize, so the use case is, if you know what values you need to repeat, so then you can go with either for loop or while loop. So see the difference. If you know the set of values what you need to repeat, again I'm repeating. So when I need to use for loop and when I need to use while loop, if you know what values you need to repeat, if you know what values you wanted to repeat, then use for loop or while loop, for loop or while loop. But if you don't know, so I will explain with an example. But if you don't know for loop or means if you don't know the exact repetitions, but if you don't know exact repetitions, then if you don't know the exact repetitions, then use while loop only. So I will explain what it means. So if you know the exact repetitions, then use for loop or while loop. But if you don't know the exact repetitions, then use while loop only. So what it means, I will take a simple scenario and we will write the example program also. So for example, you are logging into Facebook or Gmail and so on. So you are logging into some website by using your username and password. For example, you forgot or you remember your username and password. So for example, at first attempt itself, I may enter correct username and password. So first attempt may be correct username and password. So then it may be success and you may log in into your Facebook or Gmail account. Or you forgot your password. Second attempt, you may enter correct credentials. It may success. Or you may try third attempt, you may success. Fourth attempt, you may success. Fifth attempt, you may success. Means here I don't know the exact repetitions, whether I need to repeat 100 times or 5 times or 3 times or 1 time or 1,000 times. I don't have the idea. Means when the user will enter the correct username and password, I don't know. So at first attempt, he may enter the correct password, or second attempt, or third attempt, or fourth attempt. So in this scenario, so there is no sense if I repeat the same code, means if I write the logic, check username and password 100 times means I don't want to write that kind of logic. Just if it is success at first time, I need to allow the user to enter into the website. Second time success means I can allow. So he can try until he can enter the correct username and password. If he enter wrong password, I need to suggest the user please enter again the same username and password, and then I need to provide option for the user again to enter his username and password. We will see with an example. So same program. So what is the main difference when I need to use for loop and while loop means if you know the exact repetitions means how many times you need to repeat, 1,000 times or 500 times or 1 time or 5 times, then you can go with either for loop or while loop. But if you don't know the exact repetition, definitely you need to use while loop only. So see the same example program. So validate the user name and password. So write a simple Python program to validate the username and password. And if the user enters invalid credentials, you need to ask the user to again enter the username and password. So Python program to ask user to enter username and password, and until unless success, don't give access to the web page or web application. So that is our requirement. So same code already we written, but there just we are checking whether username is correct or not, right? But now my requirement is I need to repeat the same logic until he or she enter the correct username or password. So this is the previous logic. What we written is some simple if else statement I'm writing to check whether the user entered the correct username and password. Here what is my requirement is I need to repeat until the user enters the correct username and password. So see here, first I will write the program. Username not equal to empty. Username not equal to empty. And so just a few lines of code I will write and I will explain this code what it will do. And here this logic I need to write. So see here. So first, see this indentation. How it will work is this while loop is a set of block of statements I can write, right? So in the while loop, if is starting here, so this if is starting, this is the indentation. But inside again, if I need to write a set of statements means I need to follow the again indentation for this if statement. Again, if you write one more if, you need to follow the same indentation concept. So based on your requirement, this indentation for while it will be different, and here for if again we are writing within the while, right? So this indentation will be different. So what I am checking is if the username is XYZ and ABCD and you are a valid user, welcome to Facebook, I'm writing. So else what I'm doing is, so if the username and password is wrong, I am asking the user, so please enter. Oh, here what I can do is, welcome to Facebook, login success. And once if the login success, if you wanted to come out of that loop, we are having one a keyword called as break. So that is the keyword next we are going to discuss, right? Transfer control statements. A break means if it is success, if you come out of, if you wanted to come out of that complete loop, then you can use break. So for example, at first instance only, if the user enters the correct username and password, I don't want it to repeat the same username and password. So then I can come out of the loop by using break. If user enters at second time, if it is success, then if I wanted to come out, then I can use break. Otherwise, every time I need to print this user is not authorized user. Please enter correct username and password. So please enter correct username and correct password. So please enter correct password. So see here what I am doing here is, so first I am checking username is not empty, means if the user enters some username and password, what is this ninth line you are able to see, right? First two lines just reading the username and password. Username equal to input, enter username and password. And then in this line, I am checking whether the entered username is not empty, means user enters some username and password. And I'm checking whether this is matching with the username and password. If it is matching, then I am breaking this for loop. I am coming out of that, not for loop. I'm breaking this while loop and coming out of that while loop. If the condition is false, again I'm asking the username and password, and until the user enters non-empty username and password, this while loop will execute until the user tries username and password. Until those many times it will execute. In case if you wanted to stop this condition also, for example 3 times or 4 times, you can write that condition also. For example, if you are entering ATM pin, so if you enter 3 times wrong, it will block, right? So that kind of conditions also you can write. So see here, so enter username. So first time directly I'm entering XYZ is username and password is ABCD. At first attempt itself, I'm writing the correct username and password. You can see you are a valid user. Welcome to Facebook. Login is success. And let us say I am entering wrong username and wrong password. You can see you are not authorized user. Please enter correct username and password. So again, I'm entering some wrong credentials. So please, you are not authorized user. Please enter correct username and password. So now what I will do, I will enter the correct username and password. You can see you are a valid user. Welcome to Facebook. Login is success. So you can understand the importance of while loop is, here we are not predefining how many times I need to run this while loop. Here, if you see this for loop, here I need to exactly specify how many times I need to repeat. But in while loop, there is no need to specify any exact repetitions. Just you are going to mention the condition in the while loop. If, until unless this condition is satisfied, this while loop will execute. So until unless the user, here in this example, until unless the user enters empty username or password, it will try to repeat those many times. And if the condition is satisfied, I am forcibly breaking this loop to come out of this while loop. So understand when I need to use while loop, when I need to use for loop is, if there is a requirement, if you don't know the exact repetitions, then you can go with while loop. If you know the exact repetitions, then use either for loop or while loop. So if you know the exact repetition, then use while loop or for loop. And last one more examples we are going to discuss before end of today's session, that is nested loops. Nested loops. So what is nested loop is loop within another loop. Loop within another loop. Loop within another loop. So already we discussed something about if else, right? Means if, nested if. Like same thing, if I write loop within another loop, then we can say it is a nested loop. So for example, usually in your interviews, you can see some pattern programs. Interviewer may give some pattern programs. They will ask to write those pattern programs. Like we'll discuss some simple example program and I will give lot of patterns. Maybe you can practice later. So let us say I wanted to print something like this. So in the first row, I wanted to print first star, and second row, I wanted to print two stars. Third row, I wanted to print three stars. Fourth row, I wanted to print four stars. And based on the user input number of rows, I wanted to print those many rows with star. And second row, fourth row, fifth row, and so on. So this is my pattern program. I wanted to print something like this. So this is my requirement. So in the first row, one star. In the second row, I wanted to print two star. In the third row, I'm interested to print three stars. Fourth row, four stars, and so on. So what is nested loop means? Loop within another loop. So very simple, two lines of code here, three, four lines of code. See here. So I wanted to print that pattern. So nested for loop. So for first, I will ask the user how many rows he wanted to print. N equal to int input enter number of rows. Enter number of rows. First, I will write the code and then I will explain how it will execute. So for I in range 1 to n. So why I'm giving n plus 1 also I will explain. For j in range of 1 comma I plus 1 print star end equal to this. So print this. So first I will execute just these three, four lines of code to print that pattern. First I will execute and show the output. Enter number of rows, let us say 5 rows. And enter number of rows, 7 rows. You can see the output. It is able to print, right? Here the logic of the program is first I'm asking the user how many rows you want. So let us say the user is entering 5 rows. So first you can see I need 5 rows, right? If you remember range, what I told is it will exclude the end index. Means if I give 5, it will execute only 4. If you need 5 also, you need to give plus 1. That's why I'm giving n plus 1. So for I in range of 1 comma n plus 1. 1 comma n plus 1. What it means is, so range of 1 comma 5, 1 comma 6. So n is 5 I entered. So 1 comma 6. Because I need 5 rows means I need to give 6. N plus 1 I'm giving. Next. So first initial iteration, what will be the I value? I will be 1. So range of 1 to 6 means values are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So initial iteration, first iteration, I value will be 1. So what is j value will be here is for j in range of 1 comma I plus 1. 1 comma I plus 1 means first initial value is I equal to 1, right? So 1 plus 1 is 2. So how many times this j value will repeat? 1 comma. So 2 is it will exclude 2, right? Means how many times it will repeat? Only one time. So what it is printing? So if you see the logic inside that second inner for loop is print star. So just it is printing star. So I will tell you why end I'm giving. So in the second line we will get 2 stars. In the third line we will get 3 stars. Fourth line 4 stars, right? If I wanted to print in the same line, I need to use end attribute. And I told, if you remember, just a simple print. If we wanted to go to the next line, I mean, that is, if you wanted to print some empty line, then you can use print. See here, in the first iteration I equal to 1, it is printed only one time star, and then it will go for second I equal to 2. And again for loop it will execute for j in range of, so 1, I is, I plus 1 is 2 plus 1, that is 3. How many times it will execute? 2 times it will execute. So it will exclude the last index 3, right? It will execute 2 times. It will execute 2 times. So it will execute that print statement 2 times. So in the first I equal to 1 iteration, it is executed 1 time. And in the second iteration, it will execute that for loop 2 times and it will print 2 stars. It will execute this print statement 2 times and it will print 2 stars in that line. And in the third iteration, I equal to 3. So j value for a j in range of 1 comma I plus 1, that is 4. How many times it will execute? 3 times. 1, 2, 3. It will print 3 stars here. 3 stars. And next iteration I value will be 4. I value will be 4. J value will be, that is 1, 2, 3. 4 times it will execute. 4 stars it will print. 4 stars it will print. And next iteration I value will be 5. It will print 5 stars. So I equal to 5. Once it reaches 5, because I values are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Once it reaches 5, it will stop the loop. So I equal to 5, j equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will repeat 5 times this loop. And once it reaches 5, because I given I values are up to 5, then it will repeat 5 times and it will come out of that loop. So it will print this output and it will come out of that loop. So I hope you understand this program, right? First, it is starting first iteration. I value will be 1 and it will check j values and it will print those many times this print statement. And next I value will be 2. It will execute those many times of this inner for loop. I equal to 3. Based on this condition, it will execute. I equal to 4, I equal to 5. Once it reaches number of rows, it will stop loop. If you give 7, then it will execute 6 times. If you give 8, it will execute. Means based on, if you want 7 rows, you can enter number of rows as 7 and it will execute 7 times, 8 times. Means how many times you wanted to print that pattern, you can print that pattern. And same example, I wanted to print the pattern something like this. So my pattern, I wanted to print something 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. These pattern programs you will get mostly in interviews. If you attend interviews, they will ask to write some simple pattern programs. So I wanted to print something like this. Instead of star, I wanted to print in the first line 1, second line 1, 2, third line 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like this. Same program. Instead of star, what I wanted to print is, so where I can get this 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 is, so in the j value, I can get in the j value. So first I value will be 1, j value will be 1, and I value will be, and j value will be 1, 2. And in the third iteration, I value will be 3, j value will be 1, 2, 3. So just execute this program, enter number of rows. You can see 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So why I am printing j here is, j value contains whatever the pattern I require. And similarly, if you wanted to execute the same program, so my requirement is, I wanted to print something 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. So nothing but here I am printing column numbers. Here I am printing row numbers. So which value I can print in print statement is I value. So you can see enter number of rows, just entering 6. 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. So just what you need to do is you need to think something about what. So print end attribute. Someone is asking what is the meaning of end attribute is. If you don't give this end attribute, what it will do means it will print. Here I am printing in a single line that row values, right? So if I don't give that end attribute, everything it will print in a single line. Just take some simple example for I in a range of 1 to 10. So just to see here, you can understand better about end attribute. Print I. If I don't give this end attribute, what it is doing is it is printing everything in a single different lines, right? If you wanted to print everything in that single line, then you need to give end attribute. So you can better understand this output, right? So actually in this row, I want everything in that single line. In this row, I want in a single line. That's why I'm using in this print statement that end attribute. Okay. So like this, these pattern programs, I will forward some example pattern programs you can practice. Main thing is you need to think about how I can choose I and J. Here's some simple rows and columns I'm printing, but you can get some complex patterns. Just practice those patterns. You will get better understanding of these nested loops. And so I will take some 5 more minutes so that we can finish this transfer statements also very simple, so that it will finish this control flow statements. We are having three transfer statements. So that is break, continue, and pass. Already break I told is to break that loop. Means if you wanted to forcibly stop the loop, then you need to use break. If you wanted to forcibly stop the loop, then you need to use break. So break already in some of the example we used, right? A break means if you wanted to forcibly stop the loop, stop the loop based on your condition, based on stop the loop based on your condition, use break. Continue means I will explain with an example. Continue means it will skip only that current iteration. It will skip only current iteration where that condition is satisfied, where that condition is satisfied, and it will continue for the next iteration. It will continue for the next iteration. It will continue for the next iteration. So pass I will explain after showing these two examples. Let us say my interest of program is, so write a Python program, write a Python program. So where if student is failed, then stop printing, then stop printing. So for example, you are having list of student marks. So let us say student marks 56, 97, 85, 78, 45, 50, and let us say 33, 76, 54, and so on like this. So here, what is my requirement is whenever if you get any student is failed, I wanted to stop printing. So then what I can do is, see here, for I in list instead of L, maybe you can take some suitable variable name for I in max. If I less than 40, break, else print I. So what it will happen is, in this scenario, break condition, whenever if you get less than 40, it will skip the remaining all the values. Wherever if it is satisfying the condition, it will execute this for loop. Wherever if the condition is not satisfied, it will stop that loop. You can see up to 50 it is printed. After, if it is the condition is satisfied, it is stopping the loop. But what continue will do is, so write a Python program by using continue statement to skip the student which is failed, to skip only students who failed, and continue printing the remaining students. So same program. So if I use continue statement, so what it will do means it will skip only the student marks where it is less than 40, and remaining other students like 76, 54, it will print all those remaining marks. You can see the difference. So it is skipped only that 33 or 34 below less than 40, it is skipped that value, and remaining all those values are executed. Means when I need to use break and when I need to use continuous, if you wanted to stop the loop forcibly based on some condition, then use break. If you wanted to continue the iteration by skipping the current iteration, so based on your condition, then go with continue. And there is one more statement called as pass statement. So usually we are going to discuss this pass in during functions or object oriented programming. Just I will give the basic description of this pass statement. In object oriented programming, again we are going to discuss this, but just remember what is the definition of pass. So what is this pass means? In C programming, let us say in C programming or Java or .NET. So there is a concept like, if you are writing a function, so it will allow to declare an empty functions in Python, not Python, in Java, .NET or C or C++. So it will allow to declare empty functions. For example, you are developing some bank application and I don't know who are my customers, like ICICI Bank or HDFC Bank, I don't know. What I can do is, I can declare initially what are the functions required, like withdraw is one function and deposit is another function. And if I get the customer client, based on the client, I can implement my logic. So if I get ICICI Bank for withdraw, maybe they are charging some 100 rupees, and I can write that logic and I can implement my function. So these kind of empty functions declarations are allowed in C programming or Java or .NET. But in Python, directly it won't allow empty functions declaration. If I declare an empty functions, so don't worry about functions, how to write the functions, because next topic we are going to discuss functions. So for example, addition is my function or withdraw is my function, let us say. I wanted to declare an empty function like this, but in Python, it won't allow empty functions directly. So if I wanted to declare an empty function, it won't allow empty function declaration. It will give indentation errors, something it is giving error, right? So how to declare an empty function in Python is by using this pass keyword. Pass keyword. So it is not giving any error, right? What is pass keyword means, which is equivalent to an empty function declaration here. Means I am declaring a function without logic. I'm intimating this function. I will implement this function later. Just pass it for some time. So I will give the implementation later. Just wait for some more time. I am going to implement this function like that. So the meaning is which is similar to an empty function declaration here, but I need to use this keyword in order to declare an empty functions in Python. So in other programming languages, directly it is allowed, like you can declare an empty functions and you can implement later whenever it is required. But here in Python, you need to use this pass keyword. Pass it for some time and later you are going to implement that Python function. Like that, you can implement an empty function like this. So this is the complete concept about control statements. Just go through this recording and with these example programs and search Google it for a lot of examples. You will get it for loop, while loop, and if else, and these conditional transfer statements. Practice it until unless you will practice, you don't get idea of these syntaxes. So practice all these examples, which is very must very important in order to develop Python programs. You should have these concepts, means if else and this for loop, while loop concepts, which are must in order to write, because in every application at least many times you are going to use this looping concept or if else statements.